The second question is from Leonid. The new outbreak of atypical pneumonia in China, what is it? And why is it happening right now, on the eve of Chinese New Year, when Chinese will travel all over the world? Is it a part of a trade war? And does a typical virus live only in virtual media reality?
Not exactly. Any such event has a material base, something that can be touched, looked at. For people not initiated in a great spectacle could serve as witnesses based on personal experience and confirm the existence of a certain factor. In fact, this Chinese coronavirus is a big scam. It becomes obvious if one looks at it. There is a flu epidemic in the United States. On 300 million of the population, 50 million people are sick in all forms, and 1,500 have died. The number of dead due to the disease in China, let's say 50 people, and 1,500 in the USA. The difference is striking. But if we look at mass media outlets, we see an overwhelming number of reports. The media is full of them. Coronavirus, danger. There was an influenza epidemic at the beginning of the 20th century. 5% of the population died. That is 100 million people. That was the danger. There are voices. We have to stop it. Take care of regular influenza first to decrease the number of infected. But they are jumping on the problem where nothing is known yet, how it was discovered, where and how it originated, and so on. But the real existence of that infection, it is a real fact. This is a mandatory requirement for conducting such a big event. What is this big event then? An event, basically, is one. China is being formed into the center of governance concentration, the global center, one of the two. Before they were Euro-Asian, Europe, and Euro-Atlantic, Great Britain and the United States, blocks. So the Euro-Atlantic bloc is being reformed, with China being the future base. But establishing itself as the center, the Chinese elite has formed very serious relations with different countries' elites, especially with the US country elite. Let's recall the scandal with QIWI. The global elite do everything possible to break relations between different countries' elites and China country elite. The global elite need to reshape China into the concentration center of global processes governance. To achieve that, countries' elites, namely the US country elite, shouldn't have an opportunity to affect the processes of internal politics and foreign policy of China. China should become an independent, fully functional center of governance concentration. But relations exist, and they need to be broken. What are the consequences of this hysteria with coronavirus? Flights are cancelled, there are no contacts, and so on. And as a result, for example, countries' elites have some financial interest in China. They need regular contacts, cooperation, and if there is a disruption, someone won't arrive on his business trip on time. He will suffer certain negative consequences in his business. I hear voices. Everybody has losses. All, but not everybody. The thing is that the global elite own world banking and finance system. They decide how much money should be in a certain economy system. On top of that, there is an inflationary bubble, which needs to be reduced. So what actions are being taken as a result? There is hysteria about coronavirus. Certain connections are being broken, and those who own weaker businesses are suffering more serious financial losses. That means that all countries' elites are under pressure, They are losing business, having losses, and many other things. The cost of operation is getting higher. For the global elite, that expenses don't mean anything. For one simple reason, they need to deflate the inflationary bubble. They don't care who will pay the price for it. It is not important. Even if during this deflation process, countries' elites are ripped off because they, by lack of intelligence, interfere with global politics, it is just an added bonus. This is an exact main maneuver which is conducted by the global elite now. China must be established as a fully functional governance concentration center of global level significance. That is why most commotion regarding coronavirus, mass media hysteria, originates specifically from China. Chinese governance is spreading this hysteria worldwide because, I repeat, the global elite need to prevent any country elite, especially that of the United States, from having any impact on Chinese processes of state governance, both internal and external ones. This problem is being solved effectively and by different means, including trade wars. Trump conducts magnificent trade wars with China. As a result, Trump obtains resources to confront US country elite. China obtains additional means to dispose of American country elite. Two birds are killed with one stone. This tactic is used everywhere. But it is a full-scale, all-planetary action. What is going on? Great Britain is going through the so-called Brexit. To keep the attention of the crowd away from the global governance processes, to keep the crowd busy with something, they need to be always handed something with hue of hysteria, which will make them talk about down-to-earth subjects related to everybody. At the same time, the global elite will carry out the processes of global governance, which will have significant impact. But since the crowd's attention will be driven away, to everyone it will seem like a plain sailing happening by itself. Here is another example. By the end of the 1980s, suddenly hysteria about the ozone hole started. The world was losing its mind, worrying about this ozone hole. The Soviet Union, the world socialist system, is collapsing, but the crowd all over the world is busy over the ozone hole. The global changes in social life are taking place on the planet, but the crowd is distracted, and everything goes naturally. Can you imagine how these processes could have been pumped up had the crowd not been distracted? Everything could have ended with a planetary catastrophe, or it could have had a dismal end for the global elite. But they don't want that. That is why the global elite organizes excessive mass of this clueless crowd in similar hysterical processes. The Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore, and the ozone hole disappears in the skies. Some say, this company ran into big money, got such bonuses. Really, one company could organize mass media worldwide, build single information politics, align single state politics for all countries. Do you have some more fairy tales? Don't tell it to one who studies the conception of social safety, sufficiently general theory of governance, and has a clue about governance of complex social supersystems. Something similar is taking place right now. Great Britain goes through Brexit. Great Britain shouldn't exit from the EU. It is too early. Great Britain's Brexit was planned as a trigger for the destruction of the entire state system of the old Europe and the creation of new nations, languages, and countries there accordingly. Stabilization, that is what is needed today. But emotional wave must be calmed down somehow. This wave has been suppressed, dumped down all this time. And now, on the final stage, some events must be covered up. What events? A full-scale exit of Great Britain from the EU, while everybody is busy discussing coronavirus from China. Really, but Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales decided for some reason to stay in the EU. In fact, on the one hand, Great Britain is exiting the EU. On the other hand, no one is exiting anything. The situation is this. All goods that previously arrived at British ports now will arrive at Wales. But in Wales, for example, all goods will be sold to a different company at the spot with corresponding result for all customers. And vice versa, for goods leaving Great Britain, to distract people and not let them realize what goes on, their attention must be redirected. Let's recall Skripal poisoning. All the twists and turns of the official story. A crowd should be kept busy with anything else but an assessment of state governance issues that affect their lives. Common people mustn't have a chance to think about it, otherwise they will realize what is going on and will be able to separate one thing from another and distinguish important events from insignificant ones. That is why coronavirus. But that is not all. What do we see? There is a dramatic scandal in the British royal family. This is splendid. Who is not interested in coronavirus? Here you are. There is British corona, royal family. And as always, a cherry on the cake, anti-Russian hysteria. That way, governance of the global significance level, conceptual governance, is hidden from the crowd. It is basic and simple. Attention is distracted in one direction, issues are managed in another direction. By the time people notice anything, the time is gone. Even when people notice some changes in the country, because they are purposefully kept at the peripheral areas of their attention and social activity, then those changes naturally become part of everyday life. Coronavirus is gone. Interest to the scandal in the royal family is gone. By that time, the country had already been transformed into another quality. What can be done? Well, let's keep calm and carry on. The same is happening in all countries. Note the following. The crowd is always kept on its toes by different social scandals, scary stories, Nibiru planet, some comet flying over, imminent plague threat, something else. The crowd is always managed in such a way to distract its attention from their country's governance processes, which must be their primary concern, in fact. Here you go. China must be restructured to the fullest. However, China is the first one to throw tantrums. Everything is being closed. Flights are being cancelled. Business is suffering. What business? Small business is suffering, which is destined to pay for the world's inflationary bubble, that of US dollars. But what kind of small business? It is not a cookie stand or workshop. Small, it is a fairly big company, which has branches in several countries. But this company is having huge losses. Yes, it may survive, but will sustain losses. The activity will be cut down. And after that, this company certainly won't be able to influence governance processes, including those in China, as they used to do previously. After all, the influence of this country's elites is a huge problem for China. China grew up as a global goods factory for the West. Production lines of many companies were moved to China in order to transfer technologies, to build industrial plants, factories. As a result, one petrochemical plant in China supplies several Western chemical corporations. It is a fact. That means that those corporations have their interests in China. They will influence issues of China's domestic policy, so they must be led to sustaining losses of such degree that they won't be able to do that anymore. Using coronavirus allows to solve these tasks at once. But the complex nature of problems of global significance level means that one coronavirus won't suffice to solve the whole problem by itself. But many issues will be resolved, many aspects will be rebuilt, then will come a short break, and the next virus will be introduced. That is how governance of complex social supersystems of global responsibility level is being conducted, even within common grass countries. Who doesn't know such maneuver like a small triumphant war? Distract a layman's attention and move ahead according to your agenda. Winners are not judged. This is a notorious story. But in our conception, all of it is described with mathematical accuracy. Learn about structural and non-structural governance. Study complex social supersystems governance.